Hey there, my name's Andrew D. I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. I practice recovery in a 12-step fellowship. I'm pretty sure I'm always going to be an alcoholic and a drug addict, but I no longer use alcohol and drugs because I practice recovery and I try to daily. Um, Someone at a meeting said yesterday something that stuck with me. Alcoholism doesn't come in bottles, it comes in people. I'm like, wow, how true is that? Like, what that means for me is that, I've learned from others that I'm always going to have these traits of an alcoholic and the disease of alcoholism and addiction. And I've learned that that disease always demands treatment in one form or another. The treatment I used to get for my addiction used to be drugs and alcohol. From a very young age, it just made me feel right. I don't know why. I didn't know why at the time. Like, I'd be using with my friends, and my experience would be so much more profound and like fulfilling than theirs. Other people would do it for a good time. I would do it to satisfy like a deep, unspoken need that I had, and I couldn't understand it at the time. And the result would be pretty awful by the time that I had by the time it ran through my binge or however you want to phrase it. The impact on my life was increasingly detrimental, but I would go on to have this hole inside me that I needed to treat, and I didn't know how to treat it anyway other than with booze and drugs. As life went on, I would think that I was managing okay because, I'd managed to get a girlfriend, I would hold a career and a job, and I'd be able to pay some bills and stuff like that, and somewhat minimize my crazy using so I could seem like a functioning member of society. But the whole time, I've got this festering sickness inside, and it's freaking killing me, and I can blot that out with more using. And I knew I was going towards a bad end, but I was somewhat reconciled with that because I thought, this is who I am, this is what I am, and I can't change that any more than I could change the color of my skin, so why bother trying to change? Life events led me up to in the hospital with like what seemed like a major health issue with my heart, but it was relatively minor. But it gave me the shove I needed to, made me realize I was an alcoholic. And the first time I proclaimed I'm an alcoholic with any real sense of truth, like it had a profound impact. My recovery began the moment I declared with certainty that I was an alcoholic. So it'd be a little while before I would find treatment, but I did find a 12-step fellowship shortly after that hospital stay, and I began recovery. I didn't really get recovery until I went to Hope Place Center's Halton Recovery House, and I fell apart for the first time. My defenses were dropped. I had physical separation from drugs and alcohol, and I was actually sober, and it was effing terrifying. I cried a lot. I was like 124 pounds, I think, which, yeah, I was dying and I didn't even know it. So I got to Hope Place, and it was difficult. I was there for 90 days, but I learned some hard truths about myself. I learned I hated myself and I didn't want to, so I learned how to love myself. I learned the difference between guilt and shame. The counselors there taught me that shame is a hopeless state of being because it's like, I am my sickness, I am a bad person, therefore I cannot change, and that's how I felt. But I learned I was a sick person, and sick people aren't bad, we can get well. So I came out of Hope Place Centers with a determination to practice the principles that I learned in my fellowship earnestly. So how that serves me today, I'm really freaking lucky because I've been training for the last 8 years for this kind of event. Now I have at my disposal, like, when I'm at home with my wife and things aren't going so well, I can realize like how my behavior is affecting this current situation. I have options I've been trained how to change my perspective to turn an event around that would previously make me want to drink or use. I've got people I can reach out to now. I've got sponsees that train me in the work that I need to do to stay well, because I can't talk about how I'm in recovery and not practice it. I have to practice it, and these sponsees hold me accountable. So that's been really helpful during this COVID stuff. I feel extremely fortunate that I have a network of people in recovery now I can rely on. It's been huge, because without like the training that I've gotten through recovery to like switch my mindset and the way I look at things, I would find endless reasons to wallow in self-pity and bad feelings. And I could still have self-pity and bad feelings. Like every once in a while, I'll be on the way to work in the car and I start crying, and I don't quite know why. It's just like, it's human emotion, and there's like fear and uncertainty about the world right now, and I'm still going to feel that. Just because I'm in recovery doesn't mean I'm insulated from real feelings. But because I'm in recovery, and what I learned at Halton Recovery House, it's okay to have those feelings, and it's okay to cry if I'm a man. Like, that's fine. But I don't have to sit in that place of, I can say, whoa, that was an emotional moment, and I could take something from that, and I could talk about it with my wife instead of trying to shove that shit down. So that's huge. That's growth for me. And then, you know, if I'm having a bad day during this COVID stuff, I've learned in recovery that I can restart my day 5 times if I need to. I can turn it around and say, you know, there's a line in our fellowship that says, without God's help, it is too much for us. And that's my experience. I can't practice recovery of my own human resources. I need to rely on something, some force that's greater than myself, because what recovery asks me to do, it asks me to think of others before myself. It asks me to treat others who are wronging me like they're sick people and cheerfully forgive them. I can't do that on my own, so I need to learn how to let this higher power work in my life, because then I have the freedom to make these choices that of my own resources I can't. Like when someone wrongs me, I want to hurt them back. I want them to understand the pain they've caused me. But with God's power, I can be like, you know what, that person's freaking sick too. Maybe I just gotta cut them a break and not react. Andrew doesn't know how to do that, but I can with God's help. So, all that's to say, you don't need 8 years to learn that stuff. It can start today. Even though it's difficult, like people crave face-to-face encounters, there's so many opportunities where people that have had recovery are desperate to give it away, because we need the opportunity to give it away to stay well ourselves. So I'd like you to keep in mind, if you are reaching out for help, you're giving the person you're asking as much as they're giving you. It's a 50-50 exchange between the helper and the helpee, the sponsor, the sponsee, because it's an exchange of energy that happens in recovery. People that are sober need people that are not, and vice versa. So it's never too late to start, and you don't need a bunch of years to be able to practice the principles that I'm talking about. It can happen very quickly with some willingness and some honesty and some determination. The unfortunate part is a lot of us, we need an incredible amount of pain to be compliant and willing to do this kind of stuff. But again, we don't have to. So I would encourage anyone, if you are experiencing suffering, discomfort, turmoil, let someone know. Ask someone that seems to have it together what they did and what they're doing. Just Google, I'm an alcoholic, what do I do? It should be pretty easy to find us. There's lots of help out there. And it is awkward sometimes, like there are obstacles with like someone might not have the software to download these apps, but we'll find a way around that. We'll get to you, just give us a chance. The Zoom meetings are pretty cool, and then there's also like Facebook Messenger where we have little meetings between like 8 of us or 4 of us. And sometimes they're even informal, where we don't even like stick to a typical 12-step format. We just talk about recovery and we help each other. We listen to each other. So I find now more than ever I am more connected with the fellowship than I have been in my entire recovery. And that's from my own home. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter why. And my life still has lots of low points and struggles and difficulties. Recovery doesn't tell me that this higher power thing is going to wrap that up in a bow for me and say, that's all good now. But it will give me the grace and the ability to like treat others well as I go through it, and therefore feel better about myself and who I am and what I'm doing. So recovery is there for everyone. Unfortunately, we don't deliver it to people. We need to go out and ask for it. And that's the tough part, but that's the part that does require a tremendous amount of courage and some trust. But I promise you, there's like an army waiting to help you if you want it. I could talk for a lot more, but I mean, there's opportunity to hear more when you reach out and you connect with that person who can help you. So my hope is for everyone that you realize you don't have to suffer. There is help out there. Yeah, that's my message for today and my experience, and I really thank you for taking the time to listen. God bless.